Second, and it is 1:01 p.m. My name is Dawn Hager-Nordblom. I'm the chair of the Environmental Advisory Council. And if we could go and introduce the council members first by island or whoever you like, and then we'll go to Kylie sitting in the public office room there, and then anyone else who is in the public waiting room or who's in members of the public. So Michelle or Rachel or Mark, if you'd like to introduce yourselves.
Sure. Michelle Lefebvre, Chair of the Exemption Committee on Hawaii Island and Hilo.
Mark Gordon, Environmental Council, Hawaii Island.
And Rachel Sprague, calling in from the island of Lanai.
Thank you. And then Jay Stone will not be available till a little later today. And then we'll go to members of the public sitting with ERP.
Kylie Wager-Cruz, Earth Justice.
Thank you. And then I believe anyone who's in the general public right there, you'll have a chance to introduce yourself. I think Brad, you're unmuted.
Good afternoon, everybody. I don't have all the controls here on my Zoom, but there they are. I am Maui Fire Department Fire Chief, and I'm here with our Corporation Council somewhere if they have any questions for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see Caleb is unmuted. Yes.
Hi, Deputy Corporation Counsel Caleb Rowe on behalf of the County of Maui. I can be here for the 4 exemption lists that we had. We also have 3 other attorneys from our office who have knowledge regarding the specific departments.
Thank you. Let's see. Should I just call people out? Would that be easier? Okay, how about we'll go with Christy Wigglesworth. I'm sorry, your name is kind of shortened there. Could you introduce yourself and which department you're representing, please?
Aloha. Hi, I'm Christy Wigglesworth, Corporation Counsel with Caleb, who just introduced himself. If you have any questions regarding the Parks and Recreation exemption list.
Okay, thank you. How about we'll go to Andrew Nelson, County of Maui.
Hello, I'm Andrew Nelson, another Deputy Corporation Counsel for the County of Maui, and here for any questions on the environmental management portion. Thank you.
Thank you. I see we have Emma Ewan.
Hey folks, Emma Ewan with Department of Land and Natural Resources. Aloha.
Thank you. We have our Attorney General, Allison Kato, but I don't think she needs to. Does she need to be on the record to say hello?
No.
Okay, great. We'll go to Jonathan Sprague.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Sprague, Director of Conservation over on Lanai.
Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. We have somebody or identity called Samar, S-A-M-A-R.
Hey, good afternoon. Sam Marvel with County of Maui Parks. I'm here just to support Corp Council with any questions they may have.
Okay, thank you. And then we have Zachary King, I believe, with DLNR.
Hi, yes, that is correct. Thanks, Don.
You're welcome. Okay, and then ERP staff, would you like to introduce yourself and Mary Alice as well?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I'm Mary Alice Evans, the Director of the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. And with me are, starting with Tom.
Tom Eisen, the Senior Planner with the Environmental Review Program of OPSD.
And Daniel.
Daniel Fama, ERP staff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think that's everyone on the call at the moment. So we'll go to agenda item number 2, review and adoption of the meeting minutes of May 5th, 2026. Mark, Michelle, and Rachel, did you have any questions or any comments on the meeting minutes?
No, looks fine.
Okay. Michelle? No? Okay, Rachel. I did have a question for Zach. I thought there's another DAR person at the meeting, who also spoke. Do you know what that person's name might have been?
I've not looked at the meeting minutes. I will do that right now and see if I can.
I think
figure out who
there's
that was.
David Sakata, but I thought there was another DAR staff there as well, sitting with him in the picture.
Okay. Yeah, let me check.
Yeah. It's not a big deal, but if you happen to find the meeting or you're able to let us know within the next 60 seconds, that would be great. But if not, no worries. Okay. If no one has any comments and everyone's fine with the minutes, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I will move, but just with the note that I believe it's Kevin Sakota.
Is it? Oh, I see. Emma says Kelly Ann Kobayashi.
And David Sakota.
And David Sakota. Okay.
David Sakota. Yeah.
So I'm going to add those two into the meeting minutes under public present. And if we can approve those two people to the meeting minutes as public present. So that would be David Sakota and what was the other name?
Kellyanne Kobayashi.
Kellyanne Kobayashi. So if you are all fine with adding those two names to the minutes for public present, then can I get a motion to approve minutes?
I'll move to approve as amended.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the wording.
Second.
Thank you so much. And all in favor? Great. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, we will go to number 3, exemptions committee. Michelle.
Thanks. We got 2 exemption lists, well, 1 from DLNR and 4 lists from County Mount, so 5 lists altogether. We received DLNR's revised exemption list. So after our last meeting, based on some public comments, based on the public comments that were received, DLNR made a couple of made a revision to the list, reverting the location of a few exemptions from type 4 to type 1. And so that list was part of this month's agenda. So that's the revised list on 5.5. I don't have any further comments on that list, only I did notice at the top it said a approval date placeholder. And it's not an approval, it's a concurrence by the council. It's a small point, and when we get to that point in the process, the list will say concurred with by EAC, not approved by, just a minor note on the list itself. So yeah, I have no further comments on the list itself. Did any of the other council members have any questions about the revised DLNR list before we go through the public comments and responses? Okay. So then, in addition to providing the list, DLNR provided responses to the public comments that we received. The letters covered similar concerns, and so the responses were similar. The first one was to Ms. Patricia Cadiz. Again, the comments concerning adding non-extractive language to exemption type 4, part 1, number 21, and DLNR's response that they weren't making that edit to the response with their rationale in the letter. That, I mean, to me, the exemption as it's written is consistent with the type. So as the council, I don't have any further concerns with the text as it's currently written. in the plan again, because it matches the way the rules are written for that exemption type. The second comment was on the exemptions type 8, part 1, numbers 6 through 10, and DLNR moved those from part or type 8, I think, yeah, back to type 1. So the way that their list was originally written. So that edit was made and is reflected in this list. Any comments from the council about the change or not change? Okay,
Mark.
No comment.
Okay.
Sorry.
Similar concerns expressed in the next letter, which was to Kylie Wagner from Earth Justice. So DLNR's responses were the same based on those 2 categories of comments. And then the third letter was to Ms. Renee Umberger from For the Fishes, and again, similar responses regarding the type 1 part 1, a slightly different comment, but still the response that no change to the text to add the words non-extractive. So again, consistent with the exemption type. And the final letter was to Ms. Ashley Aubrey of the Native Hawaiian Legal Corp. Similar comments to the first 3 letters with similar responses. So I have no further comments on that. The final letter was to Mr. Wayne Chung Tanaka from Sierra Club. Again, similar comments and similar responses from DLNR. So the changes we already discussed. So I feel that the changes as written don't warrant going back out. It's the very minimal edits to the list. So I don't recommend that we go back to public comment for them, essentially just moving a couple exemption types from type 8 to type 1. So I recommend that the council consider concurring with the DLNR list as it was published or provided to us on May 5th.
Michelle, I had a question. I know you mentioned you got a response responding to the Sierra Club, correct? Right? And I didn't see that. Just make sure the minutes are correct. It doesn't show it in the minutes. I'm sorry, in the agenda. It has down DNR exemption list, and then they had it from Patricia, Earth Justice, for the fishes, and DLNR, Native Hawaiian, but I didn't see
page, at the top of page 2 of the agenda is the link for comment from Sierra Club and DLNR response.
Okay, yeah, the top of mine only shows County of Maui. Maybe it just fell off or something.
It fell off. Yeah, I'm looking at the online version from the ERP website. It shows it at the top of the second page on the
Okay, so it is in the agenda. Yeah, it must have just fallen off on iMac. Okay, thanks.
I'm glad you're checking.
Yeah, I didn't see. So it probably just fell off on. Okay, thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned it, Mark, because it would be a sunshine issue worse. But I printed it from the website, so I have it here. So I'm assuming that maybe it just fell off on your printer or somewhere.
Maybe that was it, Dawn. Yeah, because I have everything down there. The last one I have on the first page is Native Hawaiian Legal, Corporation. And then the next stage starts with, County of Maui proposed. So it probably just fell off.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So any other points of discussion regarding the council concurring with the list? Yeah, Rachel.
So I had maybe just a curious. This is still on I guess the topic of the sort of changes to land title, or I guess, and my questions are less around acquisition or starting of a lease or starting of a um, easement, and more about the transfer out of the Division of Land and Natural Resources. Is it common across the state agencies for any agency's properties, especially those that are under protection, to have to be just a type one, or I guess a part one exemption, so that there's no notification, even if there is transfer of that land, or again, moving out of an easement, moving potentially to lesser protection. Um, is that commonly under part one?
Well, I guess let me just answer. I do not know what the exemption list for the other departments are. When we do transfers to other agencies, it automatically requires a Board of Land and Natural Resources approval. So that's the public process that um, is held. In some cases, it also might require a public hearing separately. Those transfers also require governor approval and approval by the AG. So that transfer out of our inventory would be through like the Board of Land and Natural Resources decision-making process. However, as far as like once the land goes to another agency, then that land would be under the exemption list of that agency, I guess. And yeah, I'm not sure whether whatever those lists have. Like
Okay, thank you.
as far as like the a specific like activity, like if they're going to make a farm there or whatever, it'll be.
Okay, and that's actually helpful. So it's essentially that like and usually there's a submittal that goes along with that to the land board. So there already is a bit of an analysis of the consequences or of that change.
Yeah, it goes through the public process through the board submittal, and I'm not sure if this is the case for every land transfer to every department, but I also know that if we're transferring, let's say, to the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, that board, like that department also needs to have a board hearing to receive the land too. But clearly, they would be mostly looking at it from ag lens, and DLNR would be looking at it from a more conservation, environmental protection lens.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really helpful. My thought here was just if the environmental council's role is to try to help advise on the public's role in thinking about, exemptions, allowing for notification to the public, it's helpful to know that this doesn't just make those transfers and administrative actions sort of opaque, but they just they're just show up in a different place in the public process. So I appreciate that response. Thanks, Emma.
I don't have all the lists in my head right now, but I do think it's fairly common in the list to have this as a part one, sort of the transfers, acquisition for other agencies, likely because they go through similar processes on the public notification side. But it's a good question, Rachel.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful.
I could add that I'm not aware of anything being submitted to us as far as like a NEPA, a HEPA process with an agency submitting an exemption to us, or certainly an EA or EIS for such a transfer. So if there doesn't seem to be a standard process of submittals of HEPA submittals for that.
In terms of it being a part two, that would get published in the list of agency exemptions. Right. All right. Any other comments then? Okay. Then I move for the council to concur with the DLNR list dated May 5th, 2026.
Are you taking public testimony?
Oh, at this time, Dawn, do you know if do we do that here or do we do that at the public testimony?
Maybe I can ask Allison, because we do have a item number 5, public comments. Allison, do you have any direction?
Sorry, what is the question?
Should public testimony be given for DLNR on the exemptions right now, or should people wait for item number 5, public comments?
Public comments are always required to be allowed on every agenda item. You cannot group it to one agenda item.
Thanks, Allison. Okay. Then yes, then we can take a public comment on agenda item 3A1.
Shall I go ahead?
Okay. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Kylie Wager Cruz, Earth Justice, testifying on agenda item 3A1, which is DLNR, I'm sorry, agenda item 3A, which is DLNR's proposed exemption list. I'm going to zero in on the proposed exemption type 4, part 1, number 21, and a lot of this will be a repeat of what I've already said and written in oral testimony on this item in the past. The issue here was that this exemption for continuing activities used to be under exemption type 1, which applies to operations, repairs, and maintenance. And now DLNR is proposing to move it under type 4, which applies more broadly to minor alterations in land, water, and vegetation. And the concern here is that by moving the exemption for continuing permits and activities under this new category, the exemption could arguably apply to extractive activities that have been going on for many decades, like commercial aquarium collection from Hawaii's reefs, as well as water diversions. And so if you shoehorn these types of activities into this type of exemption, then you end up with a cumulative impacts problem where the agency could say, well, we've been allowing this to go on for decades now. So if we keep adding to the problem, there's no impact beyond last year. That's classic cumulative impacts. And so we propose that the exemption not apply to extractive activities such as aquarium collection and water diversions. And when the Environmental Advisory Council is reviewing this proposed exemption, you're supposed to look not just at whether or not the exemption falls within the particular type or category proposed, but also supposed to look at whether or not the activity will have truly minimal impacts, because those are a type of activities that are allowed for an exemption under HEPA and the Kahana Sunset case. And so we propose 2 options. One is that either DLNR can amend the proposed exemption to apply only to non-extractive activities, or put the exemption back under type 1. So that's one action that DLNR could take. Or alternatively, if DLNR is not going to make those changes, then the Environmental Council can simply say that they do not concur with this proposed exemption. And DLNR could still adopt the exemption list as is, and without the Environmental Advisory Council's concurrence. So those are the 2 paths we propose. 1, either DLNR makes further changes, or 2, non-concurrence on type 4, part 1, number 21. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I can address the second part. The first part's out of our control in terms of any changes that DLNR wants to make to their list. But in terms of effects under type 4, whether the exemption occurs under type 4 or type 1, I think we do need to look at whether it concurs with the general type. But I think, whether that effect exceeds a minimal, whether that's more than a minimal effect, I guess is not, the council isn't making a call, right, when DLNR decides that a certain activity falls under this exemption type. It's DLNR assessing whether those effects are minimal, and they would need to be going through that process to identify whether an activity falls within that exemption type, whether it's under part 1 or type 1 or type 4. So I guess that I definitely hear the argument, but I feel that that's a call that the agency makes, not the council.
Michelle,
I would. Oh, sorry. Apologies.
No, go ahead.
It looks to me like it's in both places, right? Like there is, let's see, general exemption type 4, part 1, that number 21 that says issue permits, licenses, registrations, and rights of entry that are routine in nature, involving negligible impacts beyond that previously existing and resulting in minor alterations. And then also under part 1, I'm sorry, type 1, part 1, number 44, it also has permits, licenses, registrations, and rights of entry issued by the department that are routine in nature involving negligible impacts. And so I think I don't know, it is hard. And I'm a little bit curious, sort of how the concern about those items relates to like the fact that the Supreme Court's already ruled that the aquarium fish doesn't fall under that. And so those exemptions can't be used to get out of environmental assessment for that type of extractive action anyway.
So the Hawaii Supreme Court ruled that environmental review needs to be conducted. That's correct. And that is when no environmental review had been done previously. But now there are EISs that apply to the aquarium trade. Those EISs need to be renewed every 5 years. And so there is a possibility that DLNR would try to exempt aquarium collection under future EIS processes.
Thank you, Kylie and Rachel. Michelle, I understand what you're saying is that basically, if DLNR chooses to not add the language of non-extractive activities, it's really out of our hands. And really, if DLNR chooses to move forward, really, any of the parties who are against that language would have to be pursuing DLNR separately. If there's whatever, something comes out in the 10. So I hear what you're saying. But I also have read all the letters, and it's hard, there's so many laws and so many environmental issues and so much impact. And I wish that as Environmental Advisory Council, and actually not as the Environmental Council, as mentioned in DLNR's letter, but that we would be able to recognize the public trust obligations. But Michelle has a point, as far as her exemptions committee that she's in charge of, and she's looked at the rigorous review of what she thinks is DLNR has met the burden of. So I'll just leave it at that for the moment. Mark, do you have any comments, or Rachel or Michelle, any further comments?
Don, I had a question, and maybe you can clarify on this, Environmental Council. Can we offer suggestions? I know we can't tell them, but can we offer suggestions to DLNR to maybe include certain language so it clarifies it? You know what I'm saying? So what the concern was, that the concern may be handled if DNR has certain language, that clarifies that, certain things would still have to go through EIS? In other words, can we make a suggestion to them? I know they don't have to take it, but can the council make a suggestion?
Yep, we can discuss. And that's what we've been doing, and this is our opportunity certainly to discuss whether or not there's anything that, as a council, we would recommend to clarify. Well,
okay, so Michelle, you're saying we could ask them to clarify. It's their option if they want to or not, correct?
we can certainly propose it now, and Emma and Zach can speak to it now, or request that they have time to consider those changes.
Mark, do you have specific language, or did you want to take a stab at it first?
Not necessarily specific. I'm wondering if Earth Justice has any specific language that they suggest, that could be put in there to clarify it, since they're a little bit more familiar with it than I am, that could actually put in there just to clarify it.
Yes, so we proposed red lines to changes to the proposed exemption language in our comment letter. So it just specifies that the exemption applies to non-extractive activities, which we think will fully address the problem. But again, alternatively, I mean, we've considered this at 3 meetings so far. And alternatively, the council can just say they don't concur with this particular exemption. DLNR can move forward with it. And if DLNR tries to use it for a purpose such as aquarium collection or water diversions in the future, then they won't have the environmental council's seal of approval if there's ever litigation over this in the future. And so if you want to just put this matter to rest today, you can just not concur with DLNR's proposed exemption for this particular one.
Dawn, could we put something in the letter that would say something like, this exemption does not apply to non-extractive activities, as Earth Justice said, make that suggestion? I don't know what the rest of the council feels on that as a suggestion to DLNR.
Sure. So
DLNR responded to that.
In
their response.
So Mark, page, I think it's Earth Justice Letter, page 2, dated March 10th, 2026.
Okay.
And so Ryan had responded to Kylie, and basically general exemption in the middle of the letter, it says general exemption type 4 part 1 number 21 should be amended to make clear that the exemption does not apply to extra active activities as follows. In quotes, issue permits, license, registrations, and rights of entry that are routine in nature, involve non-extractive activities with negligible impacts beyond that previously existing and resulting in minor alteration in conditions of land, water, vegetation. So they add the red line. And DLNR has said that they feel, and I won't speak for Emma, so Emma can speak too, but DLNR responded with a letter saying their position. So Emma, if you want to clarify anything, now would be a good time. Sorry, you're muted. There you go.
Not yet.
No?
There you go.
Now.
Okay, great, thanks. We did get this request for adding the non-extractive activities to this this item, and we started to try to do a brainstorm of all the extractive activities that that might be that we do not think should require a full EA, and we think should be eligible for an exemption, and that would include things that we read in the letter, such as gathering for personal use, like we, issue permits for people to collect, wood and forest products from our forest reserves, collection for traditional customary Hawaiian practices. People do research and collect like insects and, soil samples and all those sorts of things. We have, we issue leases for lands for people to do weddings and film movies, and there's a huge number of uses of our lands that have these negligible and minor adjustments to the state of the lands and waters, but are not we and could be considered extractive, but we do not feel should require an EA because they are routine in nature. And so what we're I guess pointing to is that the fact that the exemptions are only for activities that probably have minimal or no significant effects on the environment when considered individually or cumulatively. Regarding the aquarium fish issue, I do not. I have not read the EIS for the West Hawaii Commercial Aquarium Collection permit, but if that permit and the EIS is only for 5 years, if then I would assume that if they wanted to do another permit, they would have to do another EIS, but I just don't know the facts of that. I can try to get our staff on the line if there's a specific question about what's necessary for aquarium fish permits after the 5 years that you had mentioned, Kylie. But I'm not sure I can get you that information right now.
Yeah, so it's the permits are annual permits, but the EIS covers a 5-year period. So my understanding was that there would need to be some sort of new EIS process or EA process after the 5 years of permits. But the concern here is that with this new exemption type, then DLNR would try to use it to exempt any further review of the impacts after the 5-year period. And with respect to other quote unquote extractive activities, there are traditional and customary practice exemptions, really nice ones sprinkled throughout this EIS exemption list, as well as research and scientific exemptions. And so even if there was an extractive activity that involved TNC practices or research, it would probably fall under a different exemption anyway.
Yeah, but this is for like leases or right of entries or licenses for other parties to do those sorts of things rather than necessarily us doing it ourselves. But yeah, I think that the list of the potential minor extractive activities is pretty long and not something that we can make a nice list for. There's just so many things that like minor things DLNR does on our land or allows other folks to do. Yeah, and I'll try to get David Sakota on this meeting. I'll try to text him, but yeah, I don't, if the EIS period only covers 5 years, it sounds to me like they'd have to do another one, but I can't necessarily speak to that because I'm not Division of Aquatic Resources.
I mean, if DLNR wants to write a letter saying that they won't use the proposed exemption for water diversions or aquarium collection, then and put it in the record, then that could possibly help satisfy our concerns here.
I feel like we need to hear from DAR, and I know that I don't see anyone from DAR at the meeting. And I feel bad for Emma because, representing the whole department at the moment. So, Allison, I'm going to ask you, do we have to figure this agenda item out all in once, or can we pause it, listen to Maui County's list and try to get DAR and then come back to item number whatever this exemption is?
That is your discretion.
Okay.
And there's
do
no
I-
one on the call that can speak to the water leases and water use, water extraction type of activities either.
So you're saying from CWORM and from Land Division and from DAR? Yeah. Go ahead, Rachel.
So I want to say that I am especially in thinking about this was initially and continue to be sympathetic and agree with the need to understand sort of how some of these exemptions might be used. For me, I think the biggest thing that would make to explain my decision of why I would potentially concur with the list as it was written, which I'll honestly, like, I was not necessarily thinking that after some of the concerns raised prior, is that I appreciate DLNR's comments that the exemption lists are already like there's sort of there's those HRS that parts of 343 that explain how exemption lists can even be used in the first place. And they're being used for activities that probably have minimal or no significant impacts on the environment or effects on the environment. And those minimal or significant effects considered individually or cumulatively. And so that for me is where the exemption list itself is not where like a aquarium fish fishery or water diversion as an activity would necessarily show up in a specific item under, especially like type 4, which is minor alterations in the conditions of land, water, or vegetation. Like there's those words like minor and minimal or no significant impacts. And I'm not sure that the exemption list is the place to start listing out the activities that we think fit that definition. I think whether or not we as the Environmental Advisory Council concur with the list, again, DLNR, the staff are the ones who are going out and applying it using the definition of the law and and what's in the exemption list. And at that point, whether or not we've concurred with the list as it's written is not going to matter in litigation. What's being litigated is whether the action that whatever action is happening, whether that actually fits the definition, which is really more the definition of the statute and less the definition of like the exemption. So that would be why I would concur. I know that there's like I share a lot of the like the concern and uncertainty about what an exemption could be used for, but I'm not sure that the exemption list, again, as it's written, as the exemptions are written, given those and given the statute, I'm not sure that the exemption list is where these different specific activities and programs are really should be addressed, if that makes, yeah.
I hear you, and I will just note the tremendous burden it puts on members of the public when an exemption is revoked by the agency. There isn't much you can do about it under a quick time frame when things are about to start happening and permits are about to be issued. And so if this exemption passes, we don't have any assurances. Well, now Kellyanne is here about how DAR intends to use the exemption or not. We have serious concerns that they will try to find ways to make things easier for the collectors as they have in the past. And then the onus becomes on us to make it to court in a prompt manner to try to get the issue resolved, which is a massive undertaking, even for an organization with the resources that Earth Justice has.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to say one thing. Mary Alice has her hand up. So I was wondering if Mary Alice has a question. And then I'd like Kelly Ann Kobayashi to introduce herself.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to add on to what Member Sprague said. Exemption lists are not appealable, but individual exemptions are. And individual exemptions allow for 120 days after publication to appeal to the judiciary for an individual exemption that you disagree with or feel is not consistent with the law. And therefore, as Rachel was saying, there is a legal appeal process for those individual exemptions that take into account the specifics of that particular activity. So I think it's helpful to know that that in no way does a member of the public have, lose any of their appellate rights by the EAC concurring with an exemption list.
Thank you, Mary Alice. Kellyanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, Kellyanne Kobayashi with Division of Aquatic Resources. Sorry, I am late. I'm trying to see if anyone else would also be able to join from DAR. But the issue about the exemption list being used for aquarium permits, I thought we did kind of address that in our response letter. I think the proposed rules for the aquarium permits require that there be an environmental assessment so that we wouldn't be able to use an exemption for those permits.
Thank you.
Yeah, so those are proposed rules that haven't been finalized and have no legal effect right now. But again, I mean, the EAC has the duty to make sure that whatever's on the list has minimal impacts.
Again, I think, building off what Rachel and Mary Alice said, I think, our response, we can't make a decision about an individual action. So we have to assume that the list as it's written, as long as it complies with the types in the rules, it's the agency's decision making, right, on an individual action or whether it meets exemption criteria, right, whether it has a minimal effect either individually or cumulatively. So yeah.
Right, and
Well,
so we were asking to write in aquarium collection or water diversions. We were asking to write in non-extractive, which is a category of actions that have minimal impact.
So if I understand correctly, Mark's original question was, can we add language regarding non-extractive activities? Correct, Mark?
Correct.
Was this discussion capturing what you thought? Because Dar just mentioned that with the Supreme Court decision, but there's so many people. Okay, so Kellyanne is saying, with the Supreme Court decision, there won't be any more allowable uses regarding using an exemption for aquarium fishing. And I know that Earth Justice has gone on the record saying that they would like to see more specific language. And then we had a discussion about the actual list and what is exactly who is supposed to be responsible and at what point is an agency responsible for carrying through and making sure the list is being followed correctly. So Mark, let me ask you, is your question answered regarding, do you still want to see extractive activities added as language as a comment?
I would say not necessarily, Dawn, because if you said the courts have already ruled that, EIS would have to be done regarding aquarium fishing, I think that should cover it already since the courts have already made a decision. right? Is from my understanding.
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I'd have to ask Allison to weigh in on that because
I've already explained that to you, Dawn, previously, but
okay.
I suggest that we wait until we're not in a public meeting to discuss
Okay.
that.
So then I think at this point, you know, Kylie had mentioned that, seaworm elks, there's also language in the DLNR list for seaworm, and also there's language regarding land division and land acquisition. So with those two outstanding comments, not necessarily the DAR comment and the Supreme Court issue, does any of the other members have any questions or comments at this time?
Does the rest of the council you're asking have comments?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, I think you're fine. Yeah. And Rachel, I think you've pretty much said what you're gonna say for that. Okay, so Michelle, are we at? Do we?
Yeah.
concur?
I'm
Yeah.
of the same position. I'm making a motion to concur with the deal on our list as it was attached to this agenda, the 5/5/26 list.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so all in favor?
I'm not in favor, actually.
You're not in favor, so 3, 4,
I'm
and
not.
1 against.
Yes, and just the reason is because I would have liked to hear from Seaworm and Land Division. That's really the basic thing. But I understand and I really appreciate everybody's Mana'o in this and Emma's, it's very hard to be the only staff person besides Zachary King to try to bring a whole exemption list forward without other departments being here, supporting and giving the rationale. And I would have liked to hear from Seaworm and Land Division. And thank you, Kellyanne, for showing up, but for me, I think I would have liked to hear from those two divisions.
Well, none of the comments ever brought up, water issues. We only heard
That
about
was the heart of our
aquarium.
argument. So NHLC, Sierra Club, and Earth Justice all raised water diversion issues in addition.
Okay.
So it's not on you, Emma, in terms of, the departments and stuff. So I really appreciate the effort that you've put in and to try to get the list through. Like Michelle says, or, people will mention that, the EAC, whether we concur or not, DLNR can still move forward with their list. It's not something that we're prohibiting you from doing. It's just, if it goes a different direction, that's, it's just the minutes that are reflecting the council's review and purview. So I do appreciate it. Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just also just going to add that for me, it is, again, for me, the issue is not so much about how the exemption is written in a way that I think covers the minimal, negligible nature of what the exemptions are meant to cover. How DLNR or how DOFA or how Seaworm or how Land Division use them is going to be like, I concur with the list. I will, would never say that I'm going to always concur with how, as a member of the public, with how the agencies may or may not use them. So if it comes up that there's, trying to use it to exempt water diversions that are having a non-negligible cumulative impact on the environment, I would be the first person testifying against that use of the exemption and, supporting that going to litigation. So, I think, again, to me, there is that difference in terms of how, like, you can write an exemption, but you can't write paragraphs. And so you have to try to be, efficient with language and say what you mean. And how it's used is, you can't guarantee that. And this is not necessarily the place in my opinion, to try to get the agency to make a statement on exactly how they intend to use it. So I guess that's why I am concurring with it now, even without hearing from Seaworm, because like it's in some ways it doesn't matter. Like they can say the person who's here today could say they're not going to, and then someone 5 or 10 years down the road says something else. So it's to me the legality of the actions that are being taken using an exemption is something that is outside of the process that in terms of our role as the EAC. So that's again that is why I'm that's where I am at. But I do really think that this has been a really valuable discussion. I really appreciate the comments and trying to clarify some of those things. I think it could be helpful at some point to hear from Seaworm as well. But for me, that isn't necessarily required to still think about the role of exemptions and agency actions. So thank you.
Hi, I just want to chime in that Rachel's correct.
Okay, then the next step with concurrence is that DLNR provide us the list with concurred with, and then today's date in the ADA compliant form, well, to ERP and CCS, and then we can publish that, or ERP can include that as on the website with the list of agency exemption lists.
Okay, we struggle with the ADA compliance, but we will attempt to get that to you.
Yes, understood. Understood.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Wait, Tom.
June 16th is the next submittal deadline. So that, I mean, we'll publish this on our website when we get it, but to go into the next issue of 10, then June 16th is the next submittal deadline. So if you get it to us by then it'll get in the June 23rd issue of 10.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emma. I appreciate it. And Zachary, really.
Right, moving on to the next agenda item, which was County of Maui Department of Environmental Management exemption list. Yeah.
Hi, Chair. Hi,
Yes.
Chair. This is Caleb from the County of Maui. I was wondering if we could have we could advance fire on the agenda, just because the fire chief is available, but he is going to have to leave. Thank you.
Certainly. Yes, can do that. We can do fire first. This is just an editorial thing, but if we could add page numbers to the bottom and footers to the top, that way as you're flipping through the list, it's just helpful to see which department, especially since they're all coming out together.
Absolutely.
It's helpful to follow along. Great. I did, okay, so the original County of Maui, or the last County of Maui list was 2007. So this for the entire County of Maui. So understanding that the departments are splitting the list by department, which is great. And we're so happy that you're doing that. So thank you. I did notice there are some carry-throughs across some of the lists, and I noticed it in the Department of Fire and Public Safety. On the top of the second page, there's resurfacing of existing streets, operation and maintenance of cemeteries, a lot of those things that were in the original list. And, you know, while it may apply to Parks and Rec, I'm not sure if that falls under their purview, but I wonder if some of these also apply to fire department or if they are redundant and maybe don't apply here.
So the way we kind of did that is when we had the countywide list, we tried to kind of make a template where we moved things to correspond to their correct section in the new layout that was provided in the rules. And then once we got that template, we provided them to the departments to kind of add in anything they need. So that is correct that there aren't fire is not going to be using every single type of exemption that is listed on that. But we kind of just figured that we would start with what we originally had, and then we would let the individual departments kind of update that as they saw fit.
And I definitely saw those additions in there. Just wondered if it made sense then to sort of clear some out that don't apply to the specific department, just because those departments don't do those type of activities, and then they would be covered under the appropriate department. It doesn't make sense to sort of, even though it was in the countywide list, for it not to be under a specific department list if it doesn't apply.
Michelle, do you have an example so we can just look at it?
It's like the resurfacing of existing streets or maintenance of cemeteries at the top of the second page. The top of the second page.
Okay. Fire.
I mean, it's definitely, it's totally your purview, Caleb. Certainly you can leave them in, and it's no harm if that department doesn't do that type of work. Usually the list is meant to sort of to help a specific department with their exemptions, right? And if it's focused on the work they do, then it's easier to see, like, especially the type of activities they do regularly. But Tom, do you agree? I mean, there's no harm in sort of extra things in there, but.
Well, so the County of Maui is the only one that had this comprehensive list for all agencies. Every other list is specific to an agency, and so would not have things that were outside the purview of the agency. So that makes these proposed lists unique in that they're kind of a mix-up of a lot of general stuff and some specifics. The purpose of the list is to help with in the specific situation. So I think them being more specific rather than being more general would be more beneficial. So that would be taking out the basically irrelevant ones. It's kind of more work, but I think you'd end up with a list that was tailored to the agency, which is the whole reason why these lists exist.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, is this something that we could work with Caleb on, like off record, or not off record, but separately, not in the meeting, if they had questions?
Well, Caleb, what would be your preferred approach? I mean, certainly we can go through and say what we think fire department doesn't do, but does it make more sense for you guys?
No, I agree, but I think there's a lot.
I suspect those things show up in all the other lists also.
They do.
So it may be some kind of general work on all of the lists, tailoring it down.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I did notice that as well for DEM, for environmental management. And there's some things I did not recognize either for that department. So but no, we can go through it. That's fine.
No, I mean, Caleb, what would be your preferred approach?
I really defer to you guys. We did just kind of want to get these in because, as we stated, we've been previously using this kind of big one, so we weren't really sure what the best approach would be, and we kind of thought, perhaps the broader the better, just to make sure that we didn't that there wasn't any individual department who was potentially going to be relying down the road on something that they had been earlier able to rely on our countywide list, that they would no longer be able to rely on. So that's kind of the thinking that we had behind that.
If I might add, it seems like it may make the most sense for the individual agencies to go through the list and strike out what they don't see ever applying to them. It's a little hard maybe for the council members to be looking in the crystal ball to figure out what's appropriate for these agencies to have or not have in it. Clearly, that would be a step outside of the bounds of this meeting, but it may produce the best results to have the agencies basically call through them.
But to address Caleb's point, which is, so if there's a department that doesn't come up with their own list and they've been relying on a county list, and so some of these general types they might want, and maybe a solution to that would be that, if the planning department has a list, or an agency that sort of touches a lot of different projects, that could have the more general types in it, where some of these other I'm just sort of talking a little off the cuff here, but I mean, I agree that if it's for a specific department, it should be tailored to that department. But I'm trying to think of a way to address your concern, Caleb, of some of the smaller agencies, if they don't come up with their own list and they've been relying on the overarching countywide list, where what could they use, right?
No, I understand that the general list for all these this existing core list is still going to remain intact for all the agencies that choose to keep using that.
That's true. It doesn't get superseded by individual departments.
It doesn't supersede the general list. It just
I got
makes
you.
these specific ones.
That's a good point.
Well, we do have our concern with that is that there is that new rule that the exemption lists need to be updated every 7 years. So that's kind of what we're operating under.
And the old list doesn't have part 1 and part 2 per the new rules.
Correct.
Also,
Correct.
so it doesn't get that kind of.
But as far as the concern, we would like them to be as broad as possible, in case the concerns that I mentioned do come up. That being said, we are planning to submit one for the Department of Management, and kind of all the departments report to the Department of Management. So if need be, I think individual departments could potentially cite to the Department of Management's exemption list. But I just kind of wanted to give you guys the background for what our thinking on was submitting these.
I have a question. How many Maui County departments are there?
Oh, geez.
So we have 4, right? We have 4 in front of us right now, and you're saying
we have
4.
Right. So we were planning to do 4 this month, try and submit, maybe 4 again next month. I want to say we have a total of maybe 16, but some of them, aren't going to need any exemption lists just because they don't do anything that would require them. So I'm imagining we're probably going to try and get 10 individual departments, 10 to 12 individual departments submitting exemption lists.
Out of 16. And then we'll.
Right. Don't quote me on the exact number
no,
because I don't know that off the top of my head. Yeah.
No, I just want to know in terms of, I think the same information and what we're talking about would apply to those lists as well. That would be coming up to us. I understand what you're saying, but I think what Michelle is saying is that if we let's say approve the environmental management list, that list would supersede the general list.
As it applies to the Department of Environmental Management, correct?
Yeah. So
with that, with the Department of Management list, then are you comfortable then sort of trimming down these other individual departments to be more specific and having the more general categories in the Department of Management?
I am willing to do whatever you guys tell me to do.
Well, in the sense that, Tom says that's consistent with the way the other lists are prepared, but hopefully can be more useful to the individual departments, right? So that fire can pick up their list, right? I mean, the idea is that it's useful also, right, for the department itself, and they can see the activities they do in their list, and the list is useful right across time. For those kinds of activities, so rather than skimming over, we don't do cemeteries, we don't do playgrounds, we don't do all that stuff. I think trimming the list down to the individual, to the specific activities that a department does makes sense, and then having sort of overarching ones in one Department of Management or whichever list kind of Maui feels would fit that best.
I just have an off the wall comment. I know we're looking at different lists, but are you sure you don't want to just submit one master list for Maui County and, do the part 1 and part 2 and revise just, what I'm saying, like one big list for all the departments? That might make it also, I understand what you're saying. It's each individual department has specific mandates and responsibilities and funds and everything and line items. But it might be easier if you just do one master list. I don't know, Michelle, this is really your expertise. So, I'm asking as well.
as Tom said, it's not common, right, for
It's a bit of an anomaly for Maui County to have this comprehensive list, but apparently it's worked and no one has kind of suggested that there's a problem. But it is out of step with the current rules. So applying part one and part two to the comprehensive list, I think, is a strategy that could be taken to end up with a revised comprehensive list that has part one and part two separated out.
If I could just I guess make a comment on why we tried to move away from kind of the county-wide one is, one, we wanted the departments to be able to have ones that are specific to them. And it was easier to let them individually kind of update them. And the second one was, when we passed this several years ago, there's been some kind of changes to the way that the term agency has been kind of interpreted. So our concern was that the term agency in the part of the rule for passing exemption lists by the individual agencies didn't necessarily encompass an entire municipal government. So that's kind of why we decided to kind of move this way.
Yeah, well, you're right. The definition of agency, which is included both in the rule and the statute, identifies a department, not a jurisdiction, as an agency. So, and I guess that's probably helps explain why everywhere else, individual specific agencies have created their own list. But to get with what you were kind of alluding to in the first thing, having a specific list for a specific agency is probably the most helpful. And if you're going the route of having individual lists, which makes a lot of sense, perhaps is more legal, less legal, then it probably should be as specific as possible to be the guidance document that it's intended to be. I said these lists are guidance documents, so they should be tailored to a specific agency. And I think you have the comprehensive list to work from, but it's relatively easy to strike things out. Slightly more challenging maybe is adding things that aren't already somehow captured, because there could be some new specific things that aren't identified anywhere, and getting those added could be
Tom,
really
they have done that.
Oh,
They have
okay,
gone through
that's
it, yeah,
good.
and
That
added.
seems to be the hard work. Relatively easy just to line out parts that don't apply to a specific agency.
So, I mean, and I guess I will will say that our departments are going to know how to read these lists and how to use these lists. So I'm not real concerned about the ease of use for them. If you guys are in concurrence with the types of exemptions that we have listed in them, we would like to try and get something concurred with. But if the instruction is that you guys do want it to be more specific, we're willing to do that. But if it's just a matter of ease of use, our departments will be trained in how to use these exemption lists and how to identify the ones that they're relying on.
I was thinking actually more ease of creating the list is by cutting out irrelevant items would make the list more specific.
I wish that I had this meeting prior to us drafting all these, because we're already well underway doing them for many of our departments.
That's the challenge. I understand.
Yeah.
But we are here to help you. It's
right.
We want to make sure that we get it right, all of us together, and as little grief as possible. So I hear two things. One is Tom is saying you can go through the list and line item things out that don't apply to the department. Or I suggested one master list, but you're mentioning that you may not want that. And then is there a third? I don't think there's a third solution to what I'm saying.
I mean, I think the third solution is that if you guys think that the things that we've listed, can properly be exempted, we can leave them, and we can try and pare down further ones that we submit. But again, the departments are going to know how to be able to use this document, and if something's not relevant to them, they just won't use it.
Yeah, I'll say when we reviewed other agency lists, and if old, if they've used an old list and they put something in, and we ask a question like, "Oh, do you still do that kind of work? Do you, are you building this kind of stuff?" Or we tell us some specifics, and they go, "Oh no, we don't do that kind of work. We'll take it out." I mean, usually it's agencies have been amenable to removing what isn't applicable or doesn't serve that agency, or they don't do that kind of work. Certainly not a requirement, but I think it helps, if the public picks up, the Department of Fire and Public Safety's list and sees things in there. I mean, I see the public being like, well, does fire do that? I mean, again, the list isn't intended to inform the public about what the, department does, but I think it's certainly advantageous for it to be focused on the things that specific department does with.
Understood.
Okay, so I'm really sorry, Brad. I know you're still on the phone here. Michelle, what are your thoughts? Would you Maui County to come back and line item the things not in that specific department to make it my concern is not necessarily what you guys have talked about, but it's more with, Earth Justice was just there saying, well, look at this language for DLNR, and, they use this language, and you could use this language in the future. I think that's really where I'm thinking about is, sure, the lists are made for the department and they're tailored for the department, but it may make it harder for the general public to understand as well. It's not necessarily you and your departments, but it's also the general public and the transparency of them understanding what it is. But I'm more than happy to help you as well. That's what we're here for. So.
Yeah, and I defer to you guys if you guys would like us to try and more narrowly tailor these and resubmit them for next month. Hopefully maybe with an additional couple of departments also. We're happy to do that.
I think that work up front would serve the process well. I think then that as you develop the next list with that in mind, I think it could help. It could help the review process.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, everyone who's on the phone.
I mean, it's going to be similar for the next three lists, right? So we've got Department of Environmental Management next on the agenda, and I would say at the very beginning of that list, there's some intro text that the other three lists didn't have, citing Section 343 authorizing and we are no longer the Environmental Council. We are the Environmental Advisory Council. So just make that note there. Or you can have just the intro match the other two lists, but either way, either make it match or just make the correction to Environmental Advisory. But thanks to DEM, appreciate the page numbers and headers on the top. I did think it was helpful that the types were bolded though in the Department of Fire list, and would recommend that the other lists adopt the same sort of bolding at the types. It helps the reader find the types easier. So if you could just sort of match that formatting for the types. Definitely felt this list definitely included a lot of the specifics that DEM does, Tom. So yeah, to your point, they definitely just as Fire did in their list, sort of added the specifics, but again would sort of recommend where possible. I don't think you guys had the same sort of keeping a lot of the old language. Is that Andrew, right? You're the one. Yeah, thanks. I think you guys cleared out some of those ones that didn't apply, right, to DEM.
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some context. I started with the Honolulu Department of Environmental Services list approved in, or not approved, sorry, that was published in March 2021, and found that it included activities that appeared to me to, better match what DEM does on Maui. And so use that as a starting point. I did remove some activities that that we don't undertake on Maui. Let's see here. And I did identify I think in exemption type 1, number 1, there's some language related to recreational facilities that that I could look at discussing with the department before your folks' next meeting. I had skimmed through the rest and I didn't identify anything else that really stood out. So I was just going to mention that if you folks still, wouldn't mind going through the rest of the list for comments, that might be helpful because then we could, work to address those before the next meeting. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. No, that helps. So right. So rather than structuring it from the old County of Maui list, structuring it from the Honolulu department, that makes sense. I think we could probably use a little bit more time. I think just the volume of text that we had to review, but we can definitely do that over email. We can take a look. Jay's not on our call today, but Jay Stone may also have some thoughts on the DEM list. So we can definitely discuss that and get you some specific comments on the list, but it definitely isn't the same things that we just discussed for Department of Fire. So appreciate that context and the work in putting the list together. So we can definitely follow up with some suggestions by email.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the next list was Parks and Rec. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, we skipped Finance, Department of Finance. And was that Caleb? Was that also you that worked on the finance list?
Yes, that was.
Okay.
And to be perfectly frank, I basically just, resorted our old list. Didn't add anything specific to finance. This is just kind of our old list reformatted into the proper categories. So this was kind of our bare bones template that I had provided to the other attorneys to kind of look at it and work on the exemptions for their departments. So I'm imagining, the concerns there are going to be the same concerns that you had with MFD's fire departments.
Yeah, exactly. It's especially jumped out on the Department of Finance list because you're like, well, certainly they're not doing all these activities out of that department. So, yeah, definitely taking, I think, another look to be more specific, to the activities that the department does and what need to be added there.
Okay.
Okay. And then last was Department of Parks and Rec. Oh, and same note in terms of the bolding, page numbers, and headers if possible. Okay, and then there was Parks and Rec. Christy,
sorry, real quick, if I could just, if we do want to kind of email these to someone to try and work with them, who should that be?
You can email me CCERP, and then I can share with the council, other council members.
Okay. Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem. I'll put it in.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
And we really appreciate it, Maui County. Bringing forth a list and trying to get everything. I think the last list was 2007.
Correct. Yeah.
So I really appreciate the fact that you are attempting this monstrous feat.
So last was Department of Books and Rec. So, Christy, was that you were from there? So I think similar to what we were discussing for finance, right? And Department of Fire. I think if you could bold the types, I think it just helps read better page numbers and then the headers. And I think just, yeah, generally sort of looking at the list. I know some things were added specific to, but removing ones that don't apply to the activities that Parks and Rec do. And again, happy to chat over email over any specifics. But I think it definitely makes sense, as Tom said, to sort of have you guys take a first crack rather than us sort of guessing what we think the department does and doesn't do.
Sounds good.
Any questions or?
Michelle, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Are we taking comments on any of the exemptions right now? Or are we going to do that at the next meeting? You know, like for some of the lists, you know what I'm saying? Like if we have questions, some of the stuff they want on the exempt list, whether we think it should be there or not, are we taking that now or are we going to do it the next meeting?
We can do it now, but I think because they're going to be doing a pretty big revision to the list.
That's what I was thinking. Just wait. Yeah, I think so too, because it may fall out, it may be revised. Yeah, exactly. I agree with now that you mention it. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Probably just wait since they're going to do a major revision, pull stuff out, right, and everything else. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, that takes us through the last item on the exemption. Ms. Chair.
Okay, so we will go to announcements, item number 4. Thank you again, Maui County, for showing up. You can sign off or you can stay on if you like. Okay, so announcements. I want to say something about the ADA. Thank you so much to Kim. I'm not sure if she's monitoring the meeting, for helping with all the ADA questions and issues that have come up. Again, you know, having 1 or 2 staff people trying to help the public is very helpful, because I would certainly need it at some point. And then Rachel, this is your last meeting, so thank you so much for sticking it through till 2:29 on your last meeting. Rachel's been a member since 2022. So, oh, there it is. And Rachel got a bunch of
you.
You're welcome. Do you want to do you want to say anything?
Just that it has been a great experience. I hope I've been helpful for some things, and I know you all will we'll do amazing things going forward, and this smells really, really good. Thank you again.
You're welcome. What is it? What is the lei? Crown flower?
It's crown flower and a luhei.
Nice.
Or crown, yeah, it looks like a luhei, or it's a fern.
It's a fern,
And
right?
Yes.
And no native species are on the fern.
Aw, thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. We really appreciated all your support and all your help on the council.
Yeah, and you're more than welcome to stay on as a carryover.
I will for sure. Well, and I will pop back in and provide public comment. I'll show up with Ron Terry
Right.
whenever we need to.
Whenever we need
Amazing.
to. All right, so that's it for number 4 announcements, and then we have item number 5, public comment. So I wasn't sure if there's anyone else who wanted to say anything for item number 5. I see there's a Samar, but I'm not sure if
Well,
you
Chair,
wanna
we'll
say-
add our thanks to Rachel for serving and very appreciative. So if you'll count that as a public comment, we'd like to thank you, Rachel. This has all been a learning curve for all of us but Tom. And very much appreciated your contributions.
Thank you so much. I'll be really sad not to see you on the next meetings for sure. Yeah. Okay, so we have no public comment, it seems, except for Mary Alice and saying thank you. And then I think, announcements. I forgot to say the next meeting will be July, it looks like July 7th. And is 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock fine for everyone?
Mhm.
Okay, great. And then I guess I will conclude the meeting at 2:31 p.m.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you. Thanks, Rachel. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.